welcome back to another episode of Project Yellow Podcast. Last week was about a great post-graduations program called Orr Fellowship. In this episode, I will introduce you to Kate Harrison. She's a senior product manager at Innovatemap, and she will introduce you guys to Techpoint Xtern program. Techpoint Xtern program is a 10-week paid internship that accepts students who are rising juniors and rising seniors. Kate gives a lot of great advice for students that want to get involved in the tech world or the tech industries. So find out more about product management and Techpoint Xtern program now. And again, thank you for listening to this episode.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for showing up today. Can you tell us about your background in product management, where you work, and on your role?
Sure. Well, I am an Indy native. I went to Butler for undergrad. I was a management information systems and marketing double major. I knew I wanted to be in tech, but I did not want to code. Hang on, I gotta go on Do Not Disturb for a second. Okay. So I figured I should check out the business school and see if there's anything there that is tech related. If there's anything I can do that would let me work anywhere. I'd like to stay in Indy, but I didn't want location to be an issue. So I wanted to do something in business. There was a tech major. It was called Management Information Systems. So I joined that group, and it was a great fit. I saw an ad in the daily Butler connection email that we always got and we usually ignored. But there was a link to a speaker session that was going to be happening that week. And I wasn't going to do it, but my friend said, you might as well go. What if it's great? So I went, and it was with Sally Reasoner, who started the Xtern program, and didn't know her at all at the time, but now she's changed my life. I actually just got dinner with her last night. She's the best. She started the Xtern program in 2013, 12 or 13 or something like that. And I joined it. My finalist day was on was in 2014. And by 2015, I was an Xtern, which was very cool. I expected when I went to that session that they wouldn't want me because I'm not a coder. And she said, absolutely not. There are so many fields in tech that aren't related to specifically to coding. There's a lot of support areas that things wouldn't get coded if there wasn't a structure based around what should be created. So that's how I found product through Angie's List, was the company I got matched with that year. So they thought I was a good fit for product. I'd never heard of it. Nobody ever has at that point in their school, or at least they hadn't back then. Maybe it's more prominent now in tech-based majors than it was when I started. But they thought I would be a good fit based on how I thought and where my values were and what I wanted to do every day. So it was a very good fit because I got to work with this lady named Katie Price, who was a really great mentor to start me off. She was the product owner for the mobile apps at Angie's List at the time, and I got to shadow her for a month, and then she left on maternity leave, and I got to be her from then on, pretty much for 6 years after that. So I was the mobile app product owner and then product manager, just a champion for mobile users that Angie's List interacted with. So often mobile went as the second class citizen behind web, which makes sense since there weren't as many users, but they were just as valuable, if not more, in terms of users per visit. So we had to make sure that they were taken care of. And that was my passion for those 6 years at Angie's List. I got to work directly with the dev team. I got to understand what it's like to work with devs who are very different than most people. That's why I love them. So being the bridge between the devs and the business stakeholders and our users was the sweet spot for where I got all my experience and what I like to do. So that was the first major block of my career, and now I'm in, I would say, my second at Innovatemap. So I'd always heard about Innovatemap through just the tech scene in Indy, And I always thought, if I ever get good enough to work there, I will have made it. So I'm grateful every day that I'm here. Heard Mike Reynolds speak a couple years before I joined Innovatemap, and he said something that always stuck with me, which was engineers build the thing right, and product people build the right thing. So having both of those in place is critical for a successful tech product, I would say. And so that stuck with me. And then when I got the opportunity to join Innovatemap, I jumped on it. So I got referred by one of my great coworkers at Angie's List, Jake Trowbridge, who works here now, and you know him, and he's great. Grateful to him for showing me the way to Innovatemap.
So for our viewers, they're mostly college students right now, and then can you explain then what is product management and what product owners?
A lot of different roles, and which roles are in place is different for every company based on size or like age or maturity, and focus areas, goals, things like that. But in general, there are product owners oftentimes, there are product managers, there are product directors, and then that's sort of in the product management scene. There's also the whole UX side of things, so user experience. There are designers, there are researchers, things like that. So the basis of product, though, is that you're the advocate for the end user. So while other people are worried about the money side of things, like business stakeholders, like will we make money, will we be able to last? There's that side of things that certainly they're worried about that, and that's all well and good. You need that for sure. And then there's the dev side of things. So they care about what the devs are building because that will make them money, but the devs are there to build something that's functional and will meet a need for the users, which is great. But to find out what that need is and ensure that they're building something that's valuable for users and will be actually solve an issue or solve a customer problem, that's where product comes in. So we'll take in feedback from anywhere pretty much to ensure that whatever's being built is the right thing. It could be our idea, it could be the leader's idea, it could be devs, could be directly from customers. Ideally, it's directly from customers. And fitting that into a strategy that maps all of those different sides, priorities together, and coming up with the right roadmap for a team is kind of where the product owner and manager live. Manager, I would say, for the roadmap side of things. And then the owner's responsibility is working directly with the devs to build tickets out, ensure that milestones are met to support the strategy put in place by the manager. Also managing bugs, that there's a consistent influx of issues with things that are already out that must also be managed. So how many bugs can you get in alongside your new product initiative tickets, things like that. And then there's always improvements to the system itself that the devs want to make. So it's a constant priority game of what the product owner gets into the sprint, et cetera. So that's the product management side. And then, of course, the product owner and manager are also working directly with UX designers and researchers to talk to customers and understand where their problems are, what their values are, what are they trying to do in whatever the product is that you're dealing with. And then working alongside the designer to come up with designs that are both going to meet that need and are possible to be built in whatever period of time the roadmap dictates.
Yep. So what kind of skills do you need for management?
Yeah. You need lots of organizational skills, I would say, first and foremost, and a good memory. So I don't have one, so I'm just really good at documentation. And because you've got so many different areas of influence to cover and so many different voices coming at you all the time about things that may or may not be important to you at the time, but it's important to keep track of those and keep a backlog and be able to effectively communicate with your dev team to get the thing built correctly. So if you have something in mind in a certain way you want something to look, you have to be able to effectively communicate with your dev team and give them the right resources and assets to actually get that thing build correctly. You could have something in mind, and it, based on how you wrote your ticket or anything like that, it could come out totally different. So that's like baseline. Somebody has to be doing that. And then on top of that, the strategy of the roadmap, just as I said, balancing what the user should have, what the user would really benefit from, as well as requirements for quick wins or things like that that leadership might come up with. Like, we need to do this to make this amount of money so that you can go ahead and build this great new experience. There's always gives and takes on what things you're going to be able to build. So prioritization skills, I would say prioritization, documentation, organization skills are like top 3, I would say, to get your foot in the door and like flourish in that world, and then being able to build on that in whatever field you are finding the most value in.
Yeah. Next question is, what kind of tools are you guys using in day-to-day life?
I think Jira is probably the most common tool that I don't really know how you would learn it other than on the job, other than maybe poking around and watching videos and things like that. So potentially, like if you're a student and you want to get familiar with Jira, maybe if you've got a project going and you want to try the free trial or something like that, that would be helpful. But I didn't know anything about Jira before I started, of course, and it became the tool I used several times, hours a day. It is an agile methodology platform that facilitates all of the inner workings of a team online, and it's where tickets are captured. It's where team performance is measured. It depends on what exactly you are using it for, but there is a ton you can. So that was my top used product, I would say, just to keep track of what the devs are working on. There are analytics platforms that I would use all the time. Mixmax was a common one just for mobile in general. It was a nice tool for keeping track of how users are using the tool, and gave me the ability to investigate further when bugs came up that we couldn't really pinpoint. Same thing for Segment, that sort of enabled Mixmax. So product analytics is a big part of product that, frankly, at the beginning of my product career, I tried to avoid, just because my brain doesn't work in that way as well as it does qualitatively and in a visual way. But it's something that really has a lot of value and needs to be understood, I would say. And you'd be doing a disservice to your users if you didn't dig into those as well. So big fan of those. They also enable A/B tests, which are going to be really important for anybody who's trying to, if they have 2 ideas for how something might be laid out or how a problem might be solved, you can implement both and give half of your users one experience and half the other one, and then measure whatever you're looking to improve that rate of both, and see which one is more effective, and then go with that one for everybody. Really effective tool. Did a lot of that. What other tools did we use? Of course, we used Slack and Gmail and all the communication tools necessary to keep in touch with everybody. Whimsical's my favorite tool ever, as you know. I was just using it right before I jumped on this call with you. So Whimsical is a flow charting tool that does so much more than that. I find a lot of value in it. It helps me get my thoughts in a visual form. And I do it a little bit differently every time because my thoughts are a little bit different every time. So whether it's a user's like a workflow or just a diagram or just visuals to help explain what's in my brain, Whimsical is really, really nice for that. Well, I would say Jira. Trello's common. Some of it depends on what system your company's using. If it's Microsoft, you got to use Teams, and if it's not, you could use Slack. But I think Jira is the safest, most universally used, and will give you an understanding of how, even if your company doesn't use it, it's a good background for whatever they do use, because it's kind of the industry standard, I would say. I know that Spencer would say aha as well. I have heard that a couple times since I've known him. So that must also be pretty well adopted. I think the joy of product management is that there's no right answer to that. So part of product is that you're able to empathize with anyone. And so having a diverse background, like having a product team made up of people who chose all sorts of different areas of interest is actually, I think, a benefit. So some people do choose computer science, and that's great for obvious reasons. You get to you are like I'm not that person, but I would imagine that person has a lot easier time working with their devs in terms of understanding complexities and things like that, and able to stand up for them. Maybe when dev uh, production is in question, like, oh, can they actually do this in this amount of time versus that kind of thing. Um, I was a business major, so that really helped a lot with understanding where business stakeholders are coming from and understanding their decision making and just organizational structure of the business I was in. So there was a benefit there. But a lot of people were like English majors, which is also great for documentation and imagination and all the things that you also need. So there really isn't a good answer for that. I think you probably get the most exposure to real life if you were a computer science major or some sort of tech major. But as far as I know, there aren't any product majors anywhere in the country. You can be a UX major. That's also a great way to start. Um, yeah, I didn't know what that was either. That Butler didn't have that. So
Yeah. So next question is, what kind of challenge have you faced while working in a product role?
well, for many years, it was understanding tech lingo. So I didn't, a lot of the time, have any idea what my devs were talking about. All I did was provide them with tickets and say, this is what I want. Can it be done? And then they would have conversations in total gibberish and tell me yes or no. and um, and that was a mixture of tech language, but also like company lingo that I had to also get used to. So there was plenty of things at Angie's List and Home Advisor that were specific, like acronyms and concepts and this things like that were company specific that I had to start getting used to. And that's not specific to Angie's List or Home Advisor. That's just like a student entering the workforce. They're going to have to get familiar with that kind of thing wherever they go. So an amount of what I was hearing was something I was going to be able to take further, like me understanding how a dev team works at all are the things they're talking about, like word, like back end, front end, architecture, gateways, just things that I had no idea what they were before. That I can take on and I still use today, but things like Angie's List or Home Advisor specific stuff is sort of just lost knowledge. So um, that was a struggle for a couple years because I had no exposure to tech before Angie's List. Now I feel like I can follow a conversation and maybe even add to it. So that's nice. Um, Other struggles, I would say that when I was in college, I was focused on getting A's, and it's a little different in the workforce where you just do your best and you don't get a grade other than just like, I don't know, do you get a raise that year? And it's a totally different world.
Tips that you want to give to college students right now, and can you also talk about the Techpoint Xtern program?
Yeah, I'll spend the time talking about that because I think that's the most valuable thing I have to provide in terms of background and experience. So, Extern is I have I have that program to thank for being here today. So I am unbelievably grateful to that program, and I will always tout it and sing its praises. So it's a 10-week paid internship program downtown Indianapolis, usually downtown Indianapolis. I think it's probably more open to remote now, but the benefit of it for me was that I was able to first and foremost, I think, live with tech people. So it was great that I was at Angie's List. It was incredible that I was in product, but I think it was most valuable to form relationships with developers and UX people and other product people all in one place. We all had apartments downtown through IUPUI. Got to spend those 10 weeks getting to know each other and getting to know each other's companies, the city, working for the first time, getting paid. It was just like, it was the best summer ever. And yeah, so if you can score one of those roles or like get something similar through or after graduation, absolutely go for it. I was turned off initially because I thought that they probably didn't want me because I didn't code, but I thought, hey, whatever, the application's really easy. I'll just give it a shot. So I did. And at the time, it took me 5 minutes. So I wasn't bothered by it. I think now it's more competitive and probably requires a little bit more of an assessment, but it's worth it. So if you have any chance of getting it, you should try it. So absolutely do that. Find something like that. Find your people and get to know people in the tech scene that you wouldn't otherwise have any connection with. So like I said, I was a business major, so all I ever talked to were like accountants or accounting majors and finance people, and they don't know anything about tech. They don't care about that. They just want a job so that they can support themselves, which is legit. But I wanted to be a part of something that was, creating something and like making lives better and doing that in an effective way. I don't know. So I would say Xtern is the best, and everybody should be in it if they have the opportunity.
And how do you apply though? Like when do they open those?
I don't know when they open, but it's techpoint.org. I know finalist day is in November every year, and you start the following summer. So it's probably like around October or something like that. I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Go to techpoint.org and check it out. Reach out to somebody. They're always going to be happy to talk to you. You have the best chance between junior and senior year to get in. And I know they take over 100 students a year. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Any
so awesome.
closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. I think product is about the coolest thing that you can do in tech to me. I mean, it works really well with my personal skill set, and I just love that I get to work with so many people. I'm not holed up in a room all day working on one thing like a developer might be, and that works for some people. Some of that is good for me. I like a little bit of individual work, and I get to do that still like this. It is what you make it, form your own work patterns and all that. But what I really love is working with a team. And I got to do that in a development setting at Angie's List, and I get to do that in a product design setting here. So I get to work with all sorts of different people, get to know lots of different user types, and it's just never dull. So if you have any interest in tech and you don't want to code, it can be done.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you everyone for listening to this episode. I am Daniel Tang, the producer and the host. Amos Biang is the script writer, and Elijah Lemtrin is the video editor. I will see you guys again on next Wednesday. You're listening to Project Yellow Podcast.